it's Reba, and welcome to Teaching Tuesday. It's December 1st, and man, we are just crawling right into the holiday season. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you were able to gather with some of your friends and family and able to just relax and enjoy the time, and just a time of gratitude and thankfulness as we celebrate the goodness of God to us and our lives and the things that He's done for us. It's such an amazing thing. And now we pivot into Christmas, and it's such a quick pivot as most of you are probably like me. You've got your Christmas tree up, and the Hallmark movies are already playing, and we're already listening to Christmas music, and man, things are just a quick pivot right from Thanksgiving right into the Christmas season. So for the next couple of weeks, as we go through the month of December, we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, a little bit about the birth of Jesus, and a little bit about why we celebrate this season, what this season is really all about for us as followers of Christ. I don't know about you, and maybe all of us have Christmas traditions. You have things that you enjoy doing a certain way. Your family does it a certain way, and maybe there's a certain time frame in which you do things in. But I enjoy taking every week as it leads up to Christmas and doing something different in my personal devotional reading. And this may be something that you would look forward to every year as I look usually at the season, the words of Advent, and try to anticipate the coming of Christ and the coming of Christmas for us, right? As we celebrate the birth of Jesus, and we celebrate His first coming and what His life meant to us as it led up from birth to the cross, and what that means for us now as we anticipate His second coming, right? So all of these things are all tied into this season, and it's so easy to miss it. Incredibly easy to miss the most important pieces of our season, because it is a time of great anxiety. Okay, it really, really is. The holiday season is a very difficult season for a lot of people. Now, for some people, it is a season that is really depressing. It is a season that is very hard and a very difficult season for them to go through for a variety of reasons. And if you're one of those people and you're like, man, Reba, I really identify with what you're saying right now, that's me, then I really want to encourage you to hang with us every Tuesday for the next few weeks, all right? Because I really believe that the message and the words that I'm going to share with you over the next few weeks are going to be words that are going to be encouraging for you. And our key thought for every single week is going to be the word hope. The word hope. And I really think that as we look at this word, what does it mean? What does it not mean? What are we hoping for? Who are we hoping in? All of these things that we're going to start talking about today and continue to talk about over the next few weeks. I think for those of you who maybe this is one of your hardest times of the year, for whatever reason it might be for you, but this is a difficult season in your life, that I want you to stay with us and hang in there, because there is hope, and there is. And there's hope for you, and there is hope for you through this season. There's hope for you in getting through these difficult days that you're facing. For others of you, this may not be a season that is depressing or is full of despair, but it can be a season that's full of anxieties. As we are in a typical year, we would be Black Friday and shopping and trying to get all the house decorated and and all of the food prepared, and the kids' Christmas list is out of control, and you're thinking, how in the world am I going to ever even come close to getting some of the things that are on this list? And, those are in typical years, right? The family that's coming over, Uncle Larry and Aunt Helen and whoever your people are that are just like, this is one of those times when a lot of anxiety can come. All right. But this year, especially, we already are totally overwhelmed, anxious people in general here in the United States, at least for sure. Because of all of the ramifications that have happened since last March with COVID virus. And from lockdowns to masks just sheer fears of what could happen, what might happen, and all of the things that have gone along with people who've lost their jobs, people who have lost friends and loved ones due to the virus, people who have been sick and have gone through different difficulties during this season. Obviously, those are definitely stressors. Then we have an election year in the midst of all of this. And during this time of election year, we have seen both sides of the aisle just firing at each other. And I mean that just huge criticisms and violent words and harsh words and just questioning motives and agendas. And I mean, it's been brutal election season. And then we have, as we sit here right now, we have an undecided election, right? We're still unsure as to who the next president of the United States is going to be. And so there's anxieties that come along with that. Regardless of who you voted for or what side of the fence you sit on, there's all of these anxieties and these stressors that go along with that. And then right as all of this is happening now, a lot of states, a lot of people, governors, and a lot of things are ramping back up the rhetoric on the COVID. And, some people, I read just this week in the news, man, it's going to get worse. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be bad. It's going to be worse than anything we've ever seen it so far. And those all can bring anxiety on top of all of this. Many people were told, don't gather for Thanksgiving. Don't get in groups. Don't go see your family. All kinds of things. And all of these things, what do? They lend to stressors. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with the conversation and the rhetoric or you disagree with the conversation and the rhetoric. It doesn't really matter. They still bring stressors. Because if you're on this side of the fence, you're like, why don't these stupid people get their act together? And if you're on this side of the fence, you're going, why don't those stupid people get their act together? And so either way, there's this rise in anxiety. There's this rise in feeling overwhelmed. And, even just in this past 2 weeks, four people that I'm directly connected with have taken their lives. 4. Suicide rates are going up and up and up. We've got depression, anxiety, mental health issues all over the charts. Okay. And that's just the statistics that we know right now. These are just the small pieces of information that we're actually even thinking about and even gathering as people from school age children and young people, which is one of the young people that I know that took their lives was just a teenager, to 50-year-olds. Another person I know that was in their 50s. So this is no respecter of age or respecter of persons. This is this huge gamut that's being impacted. And so this is an overwhelming season. Not because of all the usual things, but because of all the usual things plus. So if you're feeling that anxiety, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, if you're feeling a little in despair or in a sense of hopelessness, then you're not alone. I'm just going to tell you, you're not alone. There are so many people that are feeling exactly that way and are just, I heard a lady in the grocery store say it perfectly the other day. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to her friend of hers that she was with in the store and is standing in line in front of me. But what was her declaration? Her declaration to her friend was, you know what? I just don't hope for anything anymore. I just don't hope for anything anymore. And man, what a sad statement. What an overwhelmingly sad statement. I just don't hope for anything anymore. And I wonder if you would be like, oh yeah, I agree with her. I felt that same way myself, Reba. I just don't, do I dare even hope for anything anymore? I mean, everything is just flipped upside down. And so in lieu of all of that, okay, we're going to have this discussion on hope. And we're hopefully want to turn our eyes to the place where we can receive hope, place where we can get hope. So there's 2 key things in this session today that I just want to help us to focus on. And I'm going to ask you those in way of a question. So here's my first question I want to ask you. What or who is your hope in? Or maybe I could word it this way. Who or what has your hope been in? Or, in the past, what is the hope? What is your hope been anchored in? Because obviously we had our hope in something prior to losing it. Okay, so you might say, man, I have lost all hope, Reba. Okay, well, if you've lost all hope, then my question for you is, what did you have your hope in the past? What have you had your hope in, or who have you had your hope in back here before you lost it? Okay, and sometimes, depending on where you're at in your life and where you're at in your journey, you may say, well, man, I had my hope in my job, right? I mean, I had my career. That's where my hope was at. And now, man, everything is just flipped upside down with my employment, and who knows how this is all going to turn out. Okay. Maybe you would say, man, my hope was in my family. It was just on, and just being able to stay connected with those people that I love, and being able just to love them and pour into them. That was my hope. My hope was in my grandchildren and in my children, and in all the things that would give me future here. All right. But now you may be struggling and say, man, what kind of world am I even leaving them with? And what kind of struggles are they going to have? And man, there just seems to be a missing piece there. Maybe your hope was in a person, like a spouse, or maybe it was going to be in, somebody that you're hoping to get married to, or, I have absolutely no idea the answer to your question. But the truth is, we put our hope in a lot of things, and we put our hope in a lot of people. And you've probably lived long enough to know that those things can be incredibly disappointing. As people disappoint us, and as circumstances, they don't stay the way that you hope they would, people let you down. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. If my hope is in them, then my hope is crushed. If my hope was in the next president of the United States, and I'm sitting here going, I don't even know who that is right now, then man, my hope is in balance right now. Okay. And so as we look at that, there's one question I want to ask you is, who or what is your hope in, or has it been in? All right. Before you raised the white flag and said, I give up. All right. And here's the second question I want to ask yourself. What type of thoughts, what kind of things are going on in your mind right now, on a typical day right now? What are some of the things that you think about, that you dwell on, that you feed, all right, into your mind, all right? And we're gonna approach both of those, because those are really two keys to establishing hope. All right, because when you think about hope, what is hope? Well, hope is that anticipation of something that we believe is going to be good, right? So, if I say in my English language right now, I can say, man, I hope that the Carolina Tar Heels have a great basketball season. Okay, now I'm a North Carolina girl, grew up in North Carolina, love the Tar Heels. Okay, and so I could say, you know what? I really hope the Tar Heels have a great basketball season this year. And so when I use that word hope, what do I mean by that? Well, I just mean that, I want it to work out good. And I'm really, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it will. But I have no assurance that it's going to work out good. I have no promise that it's going to work out good for Carolina. I just hope that, these freshman recruits that they got in are going to show up and get her done. That's what I hope. Okay. But that's how we use that word in our English language today. But when we look at the Bible and we look at the word hope, it's used in a very different way. It's not used in the fact of, man, I really, really keep my fingers crossed that this goes the way I want it to go. It might not, it might, but I hope it does. Okay, it's not used that way in the scriptures. When we look at the word hope in scriptures, what we find is that it is an assurance of something that is coming. It is an assurance. It is something I'm anticipating, and I'm not anticipating it because I don't know for sure, but maybe it will, maybe it won't. Oh no, this is when I have my hope in something from the biblical perspective, it is something I know for sure. Okay, it's not something I doubt. It's not something that I'm flipping a coin. It's not anything like that. All right. If all the stars align, this is going to work out. No, 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 no. This is an assurance, regardless of what happens, regardless of what comes, regardless of the changes, regardless of the political scene, the COVID scene, the medical scene, the social scene, doesn't really matter. When the Bible uses the word hope, it means regardless of everything else that happens, this is an assurance it will happen. And therefore, you can put your hope in this. You can put your hope in this. Why can I put my hope in this? Because I can be assured of it. Now, oh man, I mean, seriously, what can we really be assured of in this life? I mean, when you think about it, what do you know for 100% sure? You're like, man, Reba, I used to think I knew a lot of 100% sure, but I'll be honest with you right now, I'm not sure I know anything from 100% sure. You know what? And I would agree with you. When we look at things from an earthly perspective, there's not a lot of things that we know for sure. There's just not. Nothing can be an assurity. However, from the biblical perspective, we know that God says, hey, there are some things you can count on. And the reason you can count on them and the reason you be assured of them is because God himself is the one who said they were going to go this way and it was going to happen this way, or this was a promise from him. And he's really the only person, God is the only person who can make sure something happens the way he says it's going to happen. Why? Because circumstances and all kinds of situations, there's nothing more powerful than he is. He knows everything. He is all wisdom. He is all justice. He is everything. He is in yesterday. He's in today. He's in tomorrow. And so to be God, you're the only person in the universe who can say, hey, you know what? I can guarantee that. I can guarantee it. Because I'm God, and not I'm God, but he's God. And as a result of him being God, he can guarantee the promises that he makes. And so when God makes a promise to us, it's not a, boy, I really hope this thing works out. Oh, no, not at all. When God makes a promise to us, it is a guarantee. It is an assurance that we can know, that we can just know. And so when we think about going through hard times and difficult times, when we think about stressful seasons like right now, when we think about all of the things that are bringing anxieties to our minds, okay, we have to look and say, okay, what or who has our hope been in? And maybe our hope and our hope has been in things or people who are not God. Bottom line. If our hope is in somebody that is not God, our hope is in something that is, man, this is not God. My hope is in somebody that is not God. My hope is in something that is not from God or of God or a promise of God. Then this is what I know. 100%. I absolutely know that I can't count on that. I can't. I just can't count on it. I can say, man, I hope the Tar Heels win. But I can't count on that. Why? Because God did not write me a promise in his word that said, hey, in 2021, the Tar Heels are going to win. I don't have that kind of promise from God. And so therefore, I hope they win, but I don't know if they're going to or not. And so I want to ask you, who has your hope been in? What has your hope been in? And maybe the reason you're sitting here today feeling so hopeless is because your hope has been in things or in people that had no way of being able to give you a 100% assured guarantee. I want you to think about that for a minute. Because even if you say, you know what, I'm a believer and I follow Christ and I love Jesus and I call myself a Christian, that still doesn't mean, that you have placed your hope in Christ on this daily living basis. You say, well, yeah, I prayed this prayer. Man, I know if I died, I'd go to heaven. Well, good for you. But that's hope for the future. And I'm glad if you've got that settled in your heart. I want you to have that settled. But here's the thing. Do you have hope for today, for Tuesday? Okay. Do you have hope for Tuesday? Okay. And if you're like, well, I just don't know. I don't know if I got hope for Tuesday or not. I mean, everything, this, that, the other, what? Okay, wait a minute. What do you have your hope in? What are you hoping delivers it for you? What are you hoping is going to come through for you? It's a very different feeling than I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I can place my hope in God. Because what God says is going to happen. What he says he'll do, he's going to do. What he says is going to come to pass is going to come to pass. It's a promise. It's a guarantee. You can take it to the bank, as they say. And so today, if you're sitting here and you're like, Reba, good night. I've had my hope in all this other stuff. I was hoping in a president. I've been hoping in a political system. I've been hoping in somebody to find a cure for COVID. I've been hoping in a vaccine. I've been hoping, in a new this or a new that or a this or that or this person. Then I want you to stop right now and realize you've been hoping in all the wrong things. And no wonder you've come to this point where you're like, I give up. I don't want you to give up. I want you to stop hoping in things that have no hope. And I want you to turn and put your hope into something that is a guarantee. And that is a huge step for you today. And so I want to encourage you. If you're there, man, you're going, oh, Reba, man, you're really getting all into my business right now. Then I want you to understand that is because I love you and it's a great purpose here. I want you to get your hope in something that you can be assured of. And there's only one place you can put your hope that is a 100% guarantee. And that is placing your hope in God, in His Word, and what He tells us to be true. That's where your hope can be. But let's get down to the really super duper practical. And that is every day, what is your mind thinking about? What does your heart turn towards? What are the things that go through your mind? So I want you to think about a 24-hour period in your day. Okay, let's just say you sleep for about 8 hours. So let's take the rest of those hours that you're not asleep, and let's think a little bit about what is our minds. What do we dwell on? What do we think about? And if you're like, what, I really don't know. I just don't really know. Then I would encourage you tomorrow, get your little piece of paper, pen, and get your little notepad and just take it with you wherever you go. And about every 10 minutes, stop and go, hey, you know what? What have I been thinking about? Maybe every hour, go, hey, what have I been thinking about? And just jot down some things. Because I'm going to tell you, you may be shocked to find out that your thoughts are ramping up your anxiety. The things that you put in are ramping up your anxiety. We know from a biological standpoint, from a physical standpoint, that if I eat the wrong things, I'm going to increase my blood pressure. Okay? If I have a steady diet, okay, of the wrong things, I'm going to clog my arteries. There are results, okay, to what I take and put in my body. Okay, if I go to the drugstore or go to the little 7-Eleven around the corner and I buy me one of those little energy drinks in those little teeny bottles, and I chug that baby, and then I go have 2 Mountain Dews and I chug that baby, guess what? I know what I'm going to be like for the next couple hours. Okay, I understand that what I put in is going to have a direct impact, okay, on my behavior and what comes out of me. No question. We understand that, right? We understand that. Okay. The same thing is true about what I think. What you think about, what you dwell on, what you allow yourself to mull over, okay, which is another word for meditation. What I allow my heart to meditate on, that directly impacts how I feel inside. It will directly impact how I act outwardly. And so, man, if you're feeling all this anxiety on the inside, sense of despair, a sense of hopelessness, a sense of overwhelming discouragement, then let's stop and ask ourselves, what do I spend my days putting in? What is it that I'm putting in all the time? And, in this chaotic world that we live in, I know people who keep their television on all the time to the news station because they're just wanting to hear what's next. What's the next thing? Can I just be bluntly honest with you right now? If you do that, that's probably 50 to 75% of your problem right now. Because there's a way the news makes their money, and that is off of sensational stories. And we have learned, I hope you've learned, that everything you see and everything you read is not even true. Okay? So, man, if all I'm doing is taking in a news feed, if all I'm doing is taking in a social media feed, If all I do, man, I mean, it's just brutal out there in the social media world right now as people take a post and rip it to pieces, or people take a tweet and tear it to pieces and tear people to pieces in the process. Okay. And so, man, if that's all, man, I'm spending my time scrolling through all of this. Man, no wonder that your heart is heavy. And no wonder that your anxiety levels are climbing. And no wonder you just think, is there any hope? There's not any. There's just not any hope. Because if I look out there in that world, you know what I find? Hopelessness. Here's what I see when I look over there. I see a world searching for answers, and they can't find any answers. They just can't find it. And so they keep searching and searching and searching. And I can promise you, even as a follower of Christ, you can get on that wheel, that treadmill, and you can just seem like never get off that thing. And I know so many people right now who are just feeling that sense of overwhelming. And I ask them, man, tell me about what how much do you watch your news? How much do you read the news feeds? How much are you on social media? And I'm finding these are high. People talk about, oh man, well, I'm probably watching the news 4 or 5 hours. Read through my news feed, and then I go to my social media platform, and you know what they're doing? They're spending a key part of their day just ingesting hate. They're ingesting anger. They're ingesting stress. They're ingesting anxieties. They're ingesting bitterness and all kinds of things that are out there on that front. That's what they're ingesting all day long. And when I think about, no wonder there doesn't seem to be any hope. Because if that's where you're looking to, if that's what you're filling your mind with, and that's what you believe, there's no hope. So I want to encourage you right now if you're one of those people who, man, you've been glued, okay, since the elections, and you've been glued since COVID, and you're just, okay, I want to encourage you to discipline yourself to turn it off. I'd like to encourage you to go on a fast from social media for the next 2 weeks. You say, what? I'm telling you, if you want to put it to the test, and you want to know, is this impacting me in a negative way? Take a fast from your news feed and from your social media feed for the next 2 weeks and see what happens. Now, I know you're like, oh man, I can't do that, Reba. I gotta know. And you know what? Here we go. You say, well, Reba, don't you want to know? You know what? I do want to know, but I also know this. Regardless of what happens over here, I know what's going to happen over here. My hope is not in that. My hope is in Him. And that, as a Christian, should be my perspective on life. I don't expect whoever the next president is to be my savior, to be the one who's going to deliver all the answers. I do not expect that this or that or the other is going to really change the temperature of the United States of America. There's only one place I believe can change the temperature of what we're feeling right now in the United States of America, and that is people to turn to Jesus, who is hope. And that's not a popular thing to say, and it's not a cool thing to say, but I can tell you, it's the truth. It's the truth. And so I want to challenge you to take a serious look at how you think and what you're putting in. And if you're not feeling that sense of hope and anchored and a rested soul, then boy, there may be some ways you need to change what you're thinking. As I was kind of studying through this and preparing for today, I thought my thoughts went to Abraham. And I close with this. Abraham, it says in the book of Hebrews tells us a little bit about Abraham and maybe some of the things that were going on in his heart and his mind back there in Genesis as we read his story way back in Genesis. In Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 through 10, I just want to read you these verses, okay? And I think you're going to get where I'm going as I move through here. But it says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. Man, when I thought back to this verse and these verses in Hebrews, my heart was just again reminded of so much of a truth. Here's Abraham. He lived many more hundreds of years than any of us are ever going to live. Okay. And God calls him out and says, hey, I'm going to take you on a journey, and I'm going to take you to a place, and I'm going to give you promises. And Abraham believes God for those promises. He believes that God is telling him the truth. And so he steps out in this step of faith, and he begins to follow God. And along the way, God blesses him, and he's called a friend of God. But somewhere in these discussions that Abraham had with God along this journey, God had taught him that there was a city that God was preparing for Abraham that was greater than anything this earth could ever give to Abraham. And so although Abraham wandered through the very land that was promised to him and to his descendants, even though he was blessed by God in many, many ways from an earthly possession type of thing, okay? The Bible says here in Hebrews that Abraham lived as a foreigner on the very land that was promised to him. He lived on earth as one who was on a journey. And it tells us why he lived this way. Because he was looking for the city of God. Abraham understood there's no city Abraham could build in this earth that would be greater than the city that God was building for Abraham. And so Abraham says, I live as a foreigner here. I don't live as one who belongs here. I live as one who is journeying through. And I'm not going to drive my stakes down deep here because I'm looking for the city of God. I'm looking for that city that's built and made by God. And that's where I set my hope. And the Bible says that by faith, okay, he believed it even though he could not see it. And that faith changed the life of Abraham. And today as we sit here in the first week of December, and as we think about where we have our hope, who we have our hope in, as we think about the things that are filling our hearts and our minds, I want to encourage us to have the hope of Abraham. And it was a hope of anticipation. As Abraham looked beyond the circumstances of his world in those days, as he looked beyond the dirt that his feet were walking upon, as he looked beyond the land that he was journeying through, he looked beyond all of that. And he said, you know what? I'm living not for this, but for that. And I'm going to live in this world like a foreigner in order to be able to live in the next world like an heir. Even though God had said, hey, Abraham, I'm going to give you this land as an inheritance, the Bible said he treated it as he was a foreigner. He acted as if it wasn't actually even his. He was just moving through. And I wonder if you and I could have that heart of hope and faith today, as with the spirit of Abraham in anticipation of what we know is to come. As we celebrate the first coming, we look forward to the second coming. And we realize that God has promised that he's gone to prepare a city for us. He's promised to go prepare a place for us. And he's promised to return. And so living here, I live as a foreigner. This journey, I don't put my stakes down too deep. Why? Because I'm headed somewhere. I am really looking forward to the hope that I have in Christ and the future that he has planned for me. And even though this world feels so big and so much a part of me as it expands, and I feel like I've been here for such a long time and I'll be here for such a long time, the truth is I'm not even promised tomorrow. And so you and I today, let's don't despair. Let's don't set our minds and our hearts on things that cause us to be anxious, to believe in things that will never bring us hope, to put our hope and our faith and our trust and whatever words you want to use right there in something that is going to let us down and something that's not going to solve it, something that's not going to fix it. But let's make sure that we have the spirit of Abraham in us today as we set our affections as a foreigner, as one who sojourns, as one who is just moving through. And we fix our eyes on what is to come. And then you know what I can know? I can know that for eternity future and for today, my hope is in the Lord. And I know that I can rest assured that is my guarantee of life. And that, although it may not take every anxiety I have away and it may not remove every struggle that I have, I'm not saying poof, they're all going to go away. It's a discipline of my heart and my mind to be able to think on those things. But the more I turn my eyes and think on these things, and the less I invest myself in some of this stuff over here, the more and more and more I realize what my role is, what my job is, and who my hope's in. So man, I really hope today that you will find a renewed sense of hope and a renewed sense of anticipation as we celebrate the Christmas season. I pray that during this time that your heart will not be filled with more anxiety and more overwhelmingness, but instead your heart will be filled with a sense of peace and a sense of great joy that God had brought to us and longs to give to us as we not only walk here, but as we anticipate what's to come. So man, thanks so much for joining us today. Just a quick reminder, today is Giving Tuesday and Dare for More is participating in that. So man, if you love this teaching and you appreciated this teaching time, man, we could really use your help right now on this day of giving. You can go to our website and you can give a donation. Right up in the right-hand corner of our website, you'll see a word give. You click on that, it takes you to the page. You can decide how you want to give, how much you want to give. Man, we would love to have you. Hopefully you found value in what we've been pouring into you over the last several months. And boy, we really could use your help to be able to help cover the needs of the ministry during this time when we are doing so much for absolutely free, no cost at all. And so we're glad to do that. But boy, we could use your donation today on Giving Tuesday. So you can just go straight to our website, click on the give button, and you can give it a gift of any amount. And we would love to have you do that. So also down in the notes section, you can also find a way to text to give. And if you prefer to do that, you can actually just text. You'll text the word that I'll give you there. You can just text Dare for More, and you'll be able to actually respond to that text and by giving a donation and a gift. So whatever way you'd love to do that, we would love to have you partner with Dare for More on Giving Tuesday and be able to pour into the work and the ministry that we've got going right here so that we continue to put out these resources, to put out all kinds of things that will hopefully help and encourage you, not just during the month of December, but as we look forward to 2021. Have a great day, and thanks so much for being here with us.